I gotta promote it. I mean, okay, but what? How exactly do I promote? And then what do you just connect with people
Yeah,
to
but
promote your shit? What if I don't want to? What if I don't want to get everybody in? Like I don't want like yeah, I'm cool with conversating with people. At the same time, I believe like some people try to sell you shit, and then
yeah, you just avoid those. But I mean, once you get bigger, or you get a like a consistent following, or you do it consistently, that's how you get a moderator. They'll like delete all the bullshit and they'll moderate your chats and shit.
yeah, like I would like to do a how to, like how to do this or how to do that.
Shit, you can do it.
I mean, like that's why I stream though. That's why I stream right now is because it's for that. Is to do that. Is to have the collection of videos first, and then I can pull from the videos if I need be. But without me streaming, I wouldn't have the videos. That's why I say, what's the point in gaming if you're not really capturing anything? Like, because they're capturing your data. So when you game, every time you game, why not just stream it for yourself and have that data? And then that way, if you ever feel like it or feel up to doing it, you can just edit your data. And that way you'll have, a piece of information in which, you can go back to or whatever you're trying to create. It can help you out. I be telling my brother like, hey man, because he's really good at certain games. Like he's extremely, like, he's almost like dedicated on certain games. And it's just like you get so far into the game, you level up. Everybody be staring at you in the game, but yet you're not. You're not really capturing anything.
The Hell's Angels. I said, man, I don't know if they real. Nah, I feel you on that. You gotta start somewhere. That's what all the successful people is like. You can't get stuck on where like to start or how to do that. Like you just gotta start somehow, and everything will fall in place.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing.
That's it. No, we get out of here, man.
Oh, Marco,
Louis,
I didn't tell you this.
later.
So yesterday, our conversation, like our whole conversation, is on YouTube. I was recording yesterday and I forgot.
It's all good.
I knew it wasn't nothing we didn't knew we didn't talk about. It's significant or anything, but it's funny because I forgot I was streaming and it was one person who was watching.
Talking about Stephon and his friends.
Yeah. That was that one. I didn't like the design of a Corvette. I hated the design of it. But dude, that Corvette grew on my ass, man. Because it's like the when I started learning about it, it's just like it took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I ain't never really been a fan of Corvette. I ain't gonna lie.
It
I kind of
doesn't
like the old school ones, the ones that made from steel and shit. I like
yeah.
those. But like those like 90s, early
Yeah,
2000s,
yeah,
I really didn't get off into those.
yeah. I agree with you. I
But
that.
those old
Mhm.
school ones, them mellow
Yeah,
and shit, yeah, them was clean. I ain't
yeah,
gonna lie.
yeah. I agree
If I
with
get my
you.
hands on one of those, I would get it.
Yep.
On my little
100%.
Sunday drive, I'm about to smash that
Yeah,
motherfucker.
yeah. And you know, and the great thing about it is, the gas, nigga. The gas, nigga, it's one of the most gas efficient
Oh, I didn't know
V8s.
that.
Yeah, you can buy. Yep. Yep. It's better. It's more. It's better on gas than a Mustang, than most cars that are V8.
I ain't gonna lie, but if I could afford it, I'd get a Mustang. Like,
I'm
I'm
not a big
I'm interested
fan.
in some clean Mustang, especially like if I get like even
Yeah.
the newer Shelbys is kind of clean. But if I get like an old school Shelby, I'll definitely get it.
Oh,
Get
the
them
old
good
school
ones.
for sure. Oh yeah, old school. A classic? Yeah. Yeah, any day. If I got the money to get a classic, I'm getting a classic.
Yeah, I was always like the 5.0s, the Shelbys,
Oh yeah.
especially them old school ones where they got the Shelbys where they got the little the black little racer stripes going down them.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Niggas
But
want something
that's
quick,
one of
quick,
one
quick.
though. That's a one of one. You're not really gonna run
That
into it.
motherfucker.
Yeah, you would have to customize it yourself type shit.
I definitely would.
But yeah, I 100% agree with you. They're special cars.
Is, is your mom cooking today? I was talking to Desiree. Yeah. Are y'all going over there today? What time y'all going?
Damn it. Can't. Shit.
Well, when I get over there, I may just go get some steak, so. You ain't got no lotion on that shit, bro, do you? Do you got lotion? Who else am I talking to? I'm gonna ask Ray, got lotion? Hey Zach, you got some cocoa butter lotion, nigga?
What, nigga?
She think I'm talking to her about lotion. Talking to you about lotion.
Yeah, I'll be the last person.
Zach don't use no lotion. Shit, he ashy than a motherfucker.
Ashy nigga. Straight from the motherland.
I seen a piece of chalk fall off this nigga's elbow.
Nigga, I get next to a wall, nigga. You think I'm missing a limb? Incomplete, bitch. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Are you watching YouTube? Are the PlayStation as well playing?
Yeah.
How you do that?
How
You
you
got like
do
a
it?
little video playing in the corner or something?
No, I have my phone.
Oh, yeah, it's on your
Yeah, I have an
phone.
audio. I have a audio box. I have a like a tailgate
Oh.
uh
Didn't they put that feature
stereo.
on PlayStation where you can watch a YouTube video while you play?
You can. I sent it's a message. So you send yourself like a YouTube or you send like a group a YouTube.com message and and YouTube pops up, and then you can put it on the side. You can post it on the side and play games. The only thing is it still has the ads, so you pretty much have to sign in if you don't have those ads. But it'll play ads in the middle of your shit.
Content creation thing and how you got into it, especially being from Louisiana. I don't even know what it's like over here. As you guys know, Dan Rue is from Louisiana. Yeah. And I just realized that before.
Yeah, Dan is an OG. Like, went to meets all the time, like with his GTR, running people. Like, he was active in the streets. A lot of people are just learning about Dan, like in the car community. Like, oh, I didn't know the dancing guy had a GTR. Like, bro, like he was active down here in the streets. So,
yeah. Oh, okay. There you go. Credibility there with
yeah. But like the initial side of the channel, like if you look at my YouTube channel and like where it started, like before I started doing the cinematic videos and all the nice polished stuff, like I was.
Oh yeah, I like this guy. He teaches you about the cars. He explains like the history and all that shit. I like that. Like what are you saying? I was just saying, shit, nigga. As far as like the academic work, I don't want to put all that in, but I'd love to be an engineer, create some shit. And then I always thought about this. Like, yeah, you have foreign people who are really smart, but they're so like by the book a lot of times where they're not very smart, if that makes any sense. Like, they remember all the information in a book, but yet they can't put shit together to reinvent something or something like that, or like redesign. What's the name? The redesigned chief. I think of Ford. I think it was, or something. I think it was Ford. Some big GM or Ford was black when those Challengers came out. He was black.
So it's like you get all your family to kind of look at like seeing you explore engines and stuff like that. And then I remember it was just like one day, like I refreshed it, and it was like 300. Then it was a 400. Then it was 1,000. Like 10,000. Like it started to run. So like during that initial month, like it got like almost 100,000 views. It was at like 80 or 70,000 if I remember. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this could actually be like an actual thing. And during that time, YouTube had the partner program where you didn't have.
Hence the reason why I want that WRX, man, because it's just easy to work on. That engine bay is it's everything. You can see everything. You ain't gotta take the engine out, just put spark plugs in. Like, you ain't gotta do that. Everything is up top. Everything is on the front. Oil pan and shit is at the bottom.
Right. So then we just go crazy with it. So we rebuild the truck, we twin turbo it. I learned a whole bunch of stuff about
turbos at the top. You can replace the turbo with a bolt-on easily. It's a simple car to work on.
Building process of that truck really got my channel started. Got our name.
A BMW though, which is a superior engine. Yeah, you fixing that motherfucker, you want to take the engine out just to change the oil, nigga. Damn near. And that's gonna take a special equipment to do that. So you gotta actually buy the special tools for BMW just to get your shit the way you want it. Either that or you take it to a dealer or a mechanic that can do it.
is more expensive. The LS is a little bit cheaper, but it's a dumber motor. It doesn't have the variable valve timing, especially if you have like the traditional LS3, the LS6, the LS9, and the LSAs. You have the variable valve timing and some of the vortex motors,
Hey, hold on,
but it's
Jack.
like breaking
Mm-hmm.
things down. And I voice it over, pick clips there. Okay, when I'm talking about Corvettes, I'll show a clip of a Corvette. I'm just talking about a truck motor, I'm showing a clip of a truck.
Yeah.
And I put it out there, and literally within the first week, it got like over 100,000 views. I was like,
Wow.
I'm not on camera.
Yeah.
I'm faceless. Yeah, I'm faceless. I'm explaining things. And maybe it's just my voice. People always said in the comments, oh, he sounds like Morgan Freeman or something. So like either it was the voice or the editing skills, and it found a new pathway for me to kind of express a little bit more, because you don't always have access to everything. So
Right.
like if I want to talk about a GTR, I don't have a GTR, but I know a lot about it, and I want to show people like some of the engineering differences between the generations. So if I make a video on it and it does good, it helps promote the next wave, next wave. My goal is just to touch everything. Because there's like a slew of car culture and models of ranges of cars, especially like from Australia, like the G8s and the Holden Commodores and stuff. That's such cool stuff that a lot of people in the States really don't know about,
Right.
because it's just nobody has really kind of presented it very digestible.
Yep.
So that's my goal, is to just kind of just show everything across the world and make it digestible. People can kind of get into the car scene like that.
So, would you say that you learned most of your knowledge from just like pretty much working with your brother, or doing research on these videos?
So it was a combination, because when you don't have a basis of knowledge, you're just grabbing whatever you can grab off online, and the way that my brother would explain it to me. So like my brother understood it, but sometimes he wouldn't explain it in like a very technical SAE type of way.
Yeah.
Like he'll explain like a camshaft a certain way. Like, okay, you look at this rod, it has these little peaks on it, and where the peaks are, it rides on the lobe, and then that pushes up on the valve, and it opens it a certain amount of time. The more it opens, it makes more power. It's like there's a more technical explanation to that, but at least I'm understanding the way it works.
Right.
And then I would refine my understanding by using all the online tools. Like I would look at like the camshaft manufacturers, see the specs that they have, compare that to other different cams, and then reading forums as well. Like why would you want more duration in this area? Why would you want a lower lobe separation angle? Well, a tighter lobe separation angle induces more overlap in the cam and helps scavenging, which helps the mid-range power of an engine. And then more, let's say, duration on the exhaust side, you'll typically see that with turbo cams or boost cams, because you're forcing air into the engine, and now it's not used to that amount of air. So essentially, you have to oversaturate duration on the exhaust side. So you get to understand, okay, like why are companies doing this? And you see these little anomalies, you can kind of connect the dots. So like all my research in the beginning was just like Wikipedia, like going to the manufacturer's website, seeing what they're talking about, watching their videos, and a lot of YouTube. And you get a very good base knowledge of that. I mean, I believe YouTube can get you to 80 to 90% of the actual understanding of like engines and how everything works. Like right now, we're in the age of information. There's no reason to like to really
Everything's out there.
Yeah, everything's out there. Everybody wants to teach. Everybody wants to show knowledge and show how much knowledgeable they are of the subject.
Right,
so
right.
I like that, and it just helps the next generation get better.
Yeah. So you did mention to me before, right, that you had a Honda, so you're basically you're an import guy.
Yeah, like initially, like my just
What is that you just sent me? Wait a minute, bro. Are you still? I took off. I just want you to know. No, I just want to make sure that's what we're talking about. As a separate. Are we still? I'm sorry. As far as the dates, you said Christmas week, right? I already took off. Scott, is that okay?
childhood, like playing games like Need for Speed Underground,
Yeah.
Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. Like I had a liking to Japanese cars. So like my first car was a Honda Civic EG hatch D16 Y8, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean the car made like 120 horse, had like the early version of VTEC or whatever.
That's fast, bro.
Yeah. It doesn't weigh anything. The car's what, like wet. I mean it may weigh what, 2,500 pounds?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, super lightweight. Now during the time, like I had no motion, like I wasn't making any money, so like I couldn't afford insurance on the car, so I was driving it at night trying to stay away from the laws and stuff like that. But me having that car, it was like, that's your first car. That's like your first feeling of like freedom.
Yeah.
So like it just stuck with me like forever. But I had a decision to make. I'm not making any money, and I need to do something. That time I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have any kids. I don't have any kids now, but I didn't have a kid. So I was like, this is the time I can take risks and do something crazy and see if it works out. If it doesn't, I can always go into the instrumentation route,
Yeah.
work at the refineries in Lake Charles. That's what originally where I'm from, 60 miles away in Lake Charles, is a refinery town. So my grandfather, he worked at refineries all his life. He retired off that, having very, very nice living with that. So like I always saw that, hey, that's my backup plan. If this doesn't work, I'm going to work at a refinery, make 6 figures, and I'll be good. I'm a big lifted diesel truck, I'll be straight. But going to when I started my Honda, I made the decision to sell the Honda, and I sold it for $1,600. I remember I bought a $1,000 DSLR Nikon camera, and I bought a $600 laptop. And I said, hey, I'm gonna start making YouTube videos. And that was the same time my brother told me he was gonna go buy a vehicle to build.
Right.
And I wanted to film it. I was like, hey, this is the perfect time. I get to film videos on a topic that I'm actually passionate about, which is automotive and vehicles, and then hopefully I can make money off of it to use that as my job. And ever since that first video posted in 2015, 2016, I've been doing it full time since. Yeah, consistent.
So you're a full-time content creator.
I'm a full-time content creator now. That's all I do now. Yeah.
Wow.
And at the rate that I put out videos, like I don't really make videos very, very often, and it's still supporting my living. So I'm just like, if I hunker down and get a team behind me, it's over with. It's over with. But that's just the thing. It's like this is like a very, very big learning experience, and I feel blessed to be in this position because I'm actually in an industry that I actually like to do it. Like every day, like if I wasn't getting paid for making the videos, I still would be making because I enjoy the process of doing that.
That's what's
so
important.
Just to be able to support my living off of that, absolutely blessed off that.
Yeah, same for me. I feel the same way. Like I would do this, I would do this for free, but I mean, you know, obviously the amount of travel and stuff, you have to get paid somehow.
Exactly.
But if that was taken care of, I'm not looking for profit. You know, I'm not looking for money in my pocket. It's cool. So you had the Honda, right? And then you got into obviously the American side of things, right? So what were some of the differences that you felt like you noticed the most between the two at the time?
So between like the Hondas and like the American cars, it was always like the quality of the finished product wasn't there. Like I had a 94 Honda Civic, and obviously the previous owner is up to how well they maintain the vehicle, but like this car was a 1994, and at the time it was 20 something years old, and the interior was just like immaculate. Everything worked, every button worked, and it was a difference between what I'm normally used to with like growing up with American vehicles and my parents and stuff like that. Half the shit always breaks. It's pointless. And it was a big transition whenever I sold that car, started doing the YouTube side, started making money, and then I bought myself another vehicle. I bought a 2002 Pontiac Trans Am. So this was like, at the time, it was the last year model of that F-body style. It was a Trans Am. It was the rare one, the WS6 package, got the ram air hood, the big hood scoops and all that. That car looks cool on paper, but actually living with it, the interior is just like completely garbage. The car doesn't handle right. The only reason you buy that vehicle was purely for the engine. The engine it had was the LS1, the first LS ever made. So like, I remember growing up, I saw like Pontiac Trans Am commercials, and I always thought it was a cool looking car. So once I finally bought one, it's like you're never supposed to meet your heroes. It's just, that car was just, it's all over the place. It was a great car, and it taught me into the LS side, because you have to remember that truck that we built, the twin turbo Power Stroke diesel powered small block Chevy, using Power Stroke diesel turbos. But that's all small block stuff. That's small block architecture.
Right.
It carries over into the LSs, but there's a lot of differences, like how the block structure is. Like the LSs have a deep skirted Y block, rather than the small blocks. A lot of that bottom part of the block is oil pan.
Okay.
So this one is skirted. It has 6-bolt mains, so it's cross bolted and it's 4 bolts at the top. 2 cross bolted, so it's a very, very strong architecture, but it's still a push-rod engine. So when it comes to the camshaft, lifters, rockers, all that architecture is basically the same, just redesigned for that LS.
Right.
But so a lot of things carried over, but one thing that I had to learn very quickly was like the tuning is completely different.
Okay.
See, so the old small block that we built in the Tahoe, you couldn't tune those PCMs. So the way to get around it was to do something like a piggyback.
Okay.
So like what's very popular now,
Yeah,
like
like
in
a
the
Flash
BMW
Pro,
things,
Honda,
Honda JB4s
Yeah.
and stuff. So like piggybacks are very, very popular, but a piggyback for that style of truck was very, very hard to do because this was a piggyback that you had to wire in. It was called an AEM, so like AEM, the company, and it was called an FIC8, which was a fuel ignition controller for 8 cylinders.
Right.
So you wire this thing in, what it does, it allows you to retard timing, and it allows you to change the signal going to the injectors to either add or detract fuel from the maps.
Mm-hmm.
And adding this on top of this small block, it was at the time it was cool and it was like new, but looking at how the LS architecture is and how Coyote architecture is, it's more complicated, but the idle quality is better. Like there's so many different maps that you're adjusting. If you look into HV tuners and look at like airflow under like a Gen 3 LS, you have so many different maps for idle, throttle cracker. Like when you're driving, go to and pull up to a stop to be able to keep the throttle open a little bit so it doesn't die.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different maps you can adjust where you can make an engine that makes 1,000 horsepower drive literally like stock, and you just don't have that ability with that truck. So that truck was awesome at full throttle, full tilt, full boost. Everywhere else was wrong because you're a piggyback. You're adjusting maps but you're not adjusting like the actual baseline. You're adjusting the signal that comes out of the ECU.
Okay.
So you're not adjusting the actual maps themselves. So like if you adjust everything for wide open throttle, it'll drive awesome on wide open throttle. But everywhere else in the drivability side is completely wrong. And that truck kind of taught me all the fun stuff. It made views. I mean, that truck in certain videos, talking about back in the day, in 2015, 2017, only had like 20, 30,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Some
of those videos were hitting 400K. So like it was paying for when we blew stuff up. Like when we blew the transmission, it paid for the transmission. The money was coming in on it, but I knew this wasn't the right way, and there is a next level to it. So that's when I jumped into the LS stuff, the Trans Am, and that was I would say a big eye-opening experience because you get to look at the tuning side. They make so much more power, so much easier. Like that small block before the turbos with the LT4 hot cam and the Pro Max heads it had, it was probably making 300 crank off of boost.
Okay.
When we dynoed it with the turbos, it made 400 wheel and like 600 torque. It made crazy torque. That's how small blocks are, very torquey engines. But with LSs, pretty much a bone stock 5.3 will make those numbers of a mildly built small block. The LS1 I had, the LS1s are technically seen as the low-tier LSs because they're still cathedral port, it's still the older tech, the older ECUs, it's not a Gen 4 ECU, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, with a cam and a head swap, you can make 450 wheel with it, which is pretty decent. I mean, 450 wheel is still 500 something crank with a manual, so I mean it's still decently competitive by today's standards. You have to think about price as well. So when it comes into like a Gen 1 Coyote, the engine is $5 or $6 grand. I mean, if I buy an LS1 for $2,500, throw $1,000 worth of a cam kit, do a head swap, and some aftermarket sheet metal intake, I'm making the same power. So to me, like the LS kind of opened my eyes big time. And like there is way more power to grasp. And then after that, I kind of built a drag car. So I bought this 95 S14. So it was a Nissan 240SX.
Okay.
I didn't want to go a Japanese engine solely because they're just much more expensive. I'm not talking about cases. This is before I really got really like into Honda engines. I had a Honda in the beginning, but I wasn't really big into Honda engines.
Okay, so you just had it as a daily. It wasn't really
exactly.
it wasn't really a moment for you to realize like, you know, this is going to be expensive or not to build a Honda.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So like this was before I really understood about like K series and pretty much how that is the lane that I should have went with that car.
Okay. Gotcha.
I didn't want to build any other Japanese engines because they just were going to cost too much. You know, you already know like a RB is like a solid 1,000 horse RB is going to be 30 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, 2J
Easily.
maybe
1,000, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with a 2J, possibly 25. 2J is a little bit cheaper than RBs.
Yeah.
RBs, you got to get everything from Australia.
Right.
2Js, you can get some stuff domestically, like Real Street,
a lot of stuff you can get domestically, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But with an LS, I was looking at it like, okay, what is going to be a combo that is capable of 1,000 horsepower on kill mode, and I don't care if I'm going to send the rods to the block because I'm on a shoestring budget right now. I'm like, I don't have motion like that.
What was the budget?
The budget was the whole car, engine,
before you got it. Like you already had the car, right?
I already had the car.
So what was the budget to build the motor?
To build the motor, the budget was
around that time.
Around 4,000. Around 4,000.
Okay, $4,000.
$4,000 what I put in the whole thing. So I bought a 4.8 liter LR4 truck motor. It's a Gen 3 motor. And I bought that motor for $500. I probably could have got it for $300 or $200. So those engines are thrown away all the time. So people don't want to do anything with them, and that's why everybody flocks to those motors solely because they're super cheap. Because you can pop it and throw another one right back in there and don't really care. But so I bought the motor for $500. I bought a CX Racing single turbo kit for the S14s. That was like $800. I put a precision turbo. It was one of their entry level LS series, so it didn't have flow data on it or anything like that. They'll put flow data on their more expensive turbos, but it's like one of the early entry ones that didn't have none of the flow data on and the compressor maps on their website. And then it was a stock LS1 intake, some FIC, but it wasn't FIC fuel injector clinic. It was fuel injector connection, which was a little bit cheaper. Remember, at the time I was on a budget.
Yeah.
So I put like some 1,300 cc injectors in there, and that setup all together, stock pistons, stock crank, stock rods. It just had ARP head studs in it. That whole engine setup together was only like $4,000, and we dynoed it on baby boost. I'm talking about with a 4.8. It was like 13 or 14 pounds. It made like 670 to the wheels. Which that's an engine I could have popped right there, and I wouldn't be in tears. It's just like, okay, cool, it makes 670. Now, later on, we end up building, this was like for the shop, not my personal build, but a similar build to that, but it was in a Catfish Camaro, same F-body, 98 to 02 model, and it had a 4.8 in it with a single turbo, around the same size on E85. When you turned it up on, not really on kill, but we kind of turned it up, and we made 780 to the wheels on a 4.8, and it still had room to go. Like every knock sensors were cherry, not really pulling timing on there. It's running on E85, so I mean, you can build a 1,000 horsepower motor. I mean, if you're making 800 to 900 wheel through an auto, you're making around 1,000 crank. You can make 1,000 crank LS for right around $4,000 to $5,000 if you're willing to skimp on certain parts and willing to have the opportunity of it could explode on the dyno. Yeah. Which I understand some people just don't want to have that happen.
Right.
Yeah, especially while not like street racing or anything, like especially if you blow a motor while street racing, now you have the risk of like hurting other people because you can spin out and all that oil goes everywhere.
Right.
Pieces of the rod and block are going on down on the street and stuff. So,
tires too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand that, but the LS opened my eyes big time. That's kind of like the biggest influence for me to like partner with the shop and try to build stuff. And like building this truck. This truck is a 2006 Colorado, and the Colorado platform is one that is very overlooked because when people want to go racing, they jump into the S10. So the S10, like the old 80s and 90s square body S10s, and then the later S10s, they're very lightweight. They're a very lightweight truck. So, and they only came in a single cab or like an extended cab. Okay. But these came later, and this is like a Brazilian truck. They made them in Brazil first, and then they started bringing them to the United States. And they're very light in comparison to its contemporary. So like the C10 behind you may weigh like 4,900 pounds. Yeah. This truck weighs 36. So I mean, you have 1,000-pound difference, and pitting it with all-wheel drive, 416 stroker LS. Holly, shout out to Holly for helping us with the standalone ECU on this thing. I mean, literally, this truck weighs less than a GTR and makes 550 to the wheels. So I mean, that is. You have to think about it. It's pretty much a 550 wheel horsepower GTR, but in old beat up work truck clothing, which is cool. So at a stoplight, you can just whomp it on people like that, especially down here where most of the stuff everybody likes Corvettes, Camaros, and a lot of rear wheel drive stuff. So at the light, you'll probably beat me if we're on a prep track in the quarter. You'll probably beat me at the top end. But that whole shot, that 60 foot. It's over with. That's how it is. And that's why I like this truck. It's all the power, big stall, right out the hole like that.
So if you wanted to build an LS, right? Let's say if you wanted to build an LS and your budget wasn't $4,000. Let's say your budget was $10,000, right? Mm-hmm. What would you go with the LS platform?
Okay, if it was a $10,000 budget with an LS platform, making, let me see, to balance power and reliability. Okay. First, I would jump.
First of all, is that even possible to balance though?
There's a way of doing it with LSs where you can still keep the budget in play. Okay. So like the first thing I would start off with is you'll try to find a Iron Block 6.0, Gen 3, which would be like an LQ4, LQ9, or if you can find one of some of these a little bit rarer, is the LY6, because the LY6 is a 6-liter iron block, but it comes with the LS3 heads. So remember, a lot of people jump to, when they want to do budget builds, they say, oh, you got to jump with a 4.8 or 5.3. That's cool, but you're instantly limited by the head design. You can't use the square port heads, and those flow amazing for the price. Now, you can make a cathedral port outflow a square port if you do like a CNC port and you just go crazy, balls to the wall, casting. Like let's say like you get something from like Frankenstein or whatever. Yeah, you can make a cathedral outflow a square port, but when it comes for keeping it in a decent price range, I would jump to the 6.0. You're paying a little bit more for the block, but you're going to be saving money in other areas. So Iron Block 6.0, Gen 4 crank, piston, and rod. So those are the later ones with the floating wrist pins. Okay. And those are just a little bit beefier and a little bit stronger. Square port. What are the head casting like? They're like 823s, I believe. 823s, which come on the LS3s, and then a Holley high ram, 2,000 cc injectors, a brushless fuel pump, and you're gonna need to go single turbo with that one. Okay, twin turbo is not going to fit within that $10,000 budget. So go with like a VS Racing, because it's a budget option that is still decently reliable. VS Racing 80 mil. That setup should at least touch 900 rear wheel horsepower, which is 1,000 crank.
What chassis?
Chassis, pretty much anything. I would throw it in like in that C10. I'll throw one in the Colorado.
At that point, you're pretty much looking for what's lighter.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That's why I picked, whenever I built my car, I built it on the S14 because the S14 was much lighter than the Catfish, or the Trans Am that I had. So it's like it was a better chassis to make fast and make lightweight. Right. And that whole setup, what I just talked about, should be at least like around. You can get around that for around $8,000. I would say way less than 10. Now for the price, you have to think about the Coyote. If I want to make 900 rear wheel horsepower with a Coyote, the Gen 3, you can't find a complete Gen 3 engine for less than like $7,000. So you're already maxing out that budget. You're gonna have to go Gen 2. Gen 2 is like the best bang for your budget. Gen 1s, you're gonna need to pop it open and do connecting rods if you want to get 900 rear wheel horsepower. Right. So at that point, if you go with the Gen 1, you throw like a piston and rod combo in there. You're probably at $5,000 already. Then what turbo kit is affordable within that range? You have to go with the On3 turbo kit, and then oil pump gears. You don't have to really do anything on the induction side through the stock intake manifold. You'll be able to make that amount of power just boosting fuel at that point. You don't have to do the cams and stuff like that like you have to do on the LS. But overall, you get to see that now we're at the limits. If not, we're past $10,000 at this point. Yeah. So
it's a big difference in Coyote and LS. Yeah, it really is price-wise. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like whenever people have like the Coyote versus LS debate, they always talk about power and volumetric efficiency, and I get that. The Coyote is more volumetric efficient, so essentially for every pound of boost you're gonna make more power better in the long term for every pound of boost on a Coyote than you will on an LS, but you can't deny the cost factor and how easy it is to build the LS from a standpoint of knowledge and a standpoint of price. It's just super easy to build, it's much cheaper, and it will still last with the proper tuning.
Right.
Everybody forgets the tuning part. It's always like, oh, we're just going to put all these parts together and get Bubba or one of my buddies to go tune it, and then it pops, and they're like, oh, LS is shit. Like, no, the tuner just didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
And I would say Coyotes are even more, like, worse on this because, I mean, if the tuner doesn't know, like, Coyotes have, like, 20-something VE tables. Like, they have some crazy amount of stuff on there. So, essentially, like, with Coyotes, like, if the tuner isn't on point and knowing everything that's going on with that engine, those engines can pop real quick, and now you have the cost associated because those aren't cheap engines. Dual overhead cam engines are just going to be more expensive, and essentially, once that happens, you're gonna have a lawyer at your door, like. The lawyer's going to be knocking, be popping people's Coyotes. LS is somebody pops a $500 junkyard motor, like, oh, just throw another one in there.
Right.
Like, that's the whole thing. Like, you can get away with being a crappy tuner in the LS world. Coyote tuner and being a crappy tuner with Coyotes, you're going to jail, homie. You're going to jail.
You're cooked.
Yeah, you're going to jail.
So, do you feel like a lot of people with the LS platform are mostly, because they're such on a budget, that they frequently have issues if they don't have the right tuner?
Yeah, and I find that you'll find more variance between tuner skill in the LS community than you find in the Coyote community. If, like, right now, if we say, okay, I need a tune for my twin turbo GT350 head 5.2 Predator block race car Coyote based platform. First people